Hey everyone, it's Aryan Chhabra here. I'm the current 3x3 national record holder and I welcome you all to Cubelelo's channel. और आज मैं आपको सिखाने वाला हूँ PLL जो कि CFOP मेथड का बिल्कुल आखिरी स्टेप होता है। उसको करने के बाद हमारा क्यूब पूरा सॉल्व हो जाता है। PLL stands for permutation of last layer which means क्यूब सॉल्व हो जाएगा। So चलिए शुरू करते हैं एंड सीखते हैं 21 एल्गोरिथम्स PLL की। फर्स्टली वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विद ए पर्म्स। हमारे पास दो तरीके के ए पर्म होते हैं, ए और ए बी। दोनों में हमारे पास एक ब्लॉक होगा ऐसे, बट एक डिफरेंस होगा, हमारे पास पेयर ऑफ हेडलाइट्स दोनों में मौजूद है। बट इफ आई होल्ड द ब्लॉक इन फ्रंट, एक केस में हेडलाइट्स पीछे होंगी और दूसरे केस में हेडलाइट्स राइट पे है। तो ये वाला केस हमारा ए पर्म है जब हमारे पास हेडलाइट्स पीछे हैं, एंड राइट वाले पे इट्स ए बी। लेट्स फोकस ऑन द ए फर्स्ट। सो ए में हमें क्या करना है, ब्लॉक को ऐसे पकड़ना है विद हेडलाइट्स इन द बैक, एंड द एल्गोरिथम इज एक्स आर प्राइम यू आर प्राइम D2 आर यू प्राइम आर प्राइम D2 R2 एंड देन एक्स प्राइम। एक बार मैं फिर से एल्गोरिथम दिखाता हूं एट अ स्लोअर स्पीड। एक्स R prime U R prime D2 R U prime R prime D2 R2 and then X prime। एंड फुल स्पीड पे एल्गोरिथम ऐसी लगती है। नेक्स्ट केस इज ए बी जो कि ए से बस थोड़ा सा ही डिफरेंट होता है विद हेडलाइट्स ऑन द राइट, एंड द एल्गोरिथम फॉर दैट इज X R2 D2 R U R prime D2 R U prime R and then X prime. Once again, X R2 D2 R U R prime D2 R U prime R X prime। और फुल स्पीड पे एल्गोरिथम ऐसी लगती है। The next case we have is F perm। अब मेरे को ये नहीं पता इसको F perm क्यों बोलते हैं, but to recognize this case you will have a solved kind of side। अगर आप टॉप लेयर को एडजस्ट करोगे तो आपको कैसे सॉल्व फेस मिल जाएगा, एंड वी वोंट हैव एनीथिंग एल्स ऑन द अदर साइड ऑफ द क्यूब। टू सॉल्व दिस केस यू हैव टू होल्ड द सॉल्व साइड ऑन द लेफ्ट, एंड द एल्गोरिथम इज आर प्राइम यू प्राइम एफ प्राइम आर यू प्राइम यू प्राइम आर प्राइम एफ R2 यू प्राइम यू प्राइम आर यू आर प्राइम यू आर। सेकेंड टाइम एक बार फिर से एल्गोरिथम को रिपीट करते हैं, एंड आई गिव यू अ टिप फ्रॉम विच यू कैन मेमोराइज द एल्गोरिथम मोर इजीली। फर्स्ट 3 मूव्स इस एल्गोरिथम के हैं आर प्राइम यू प्राइम एंड देन एफ प्राइम, एंड देन अगर आपको जे पर्म आता है देयर इज अ स्मॉल कोरिलेशन जिसमें आपको करना है आर यू आर प्राइम यू प्राइम। दिस इज ऑल्सो कॉल्ड अ सेक्सी मूव, यू कैन ऑल्सो रिमेंबर इट बाय दैट। देन यू डू आर प्राइम एफ R2, and then basically we're just gonna insert this pair by doing U prime R prime U prime R U, and R prime U R से ये pair insert हो जाएगा, which solves this case। At full speed ये algorithm ऐसी लगती है। नेक्स्ट सेट ऑफ केसेस हमारे पास यहाँ पे है जी पर्म्स। लोगों को बहुत मुश्किल लगते हैं, बट मैं कोशिश करूंगा कि आप लोगों को इजीली याद हो जाए। हमारे पास 4 तरीके के जी पर्म होते हैं, GA GB GC एंड देन GD। इन सब में आपको एक पेयर ऑफ हेडलाइट्स दिखेगा। चारों के चारों केसेस में ये चीज है, और चारों केसेस में ये भी डिफरेंस है, हमारे पास एक ब्लॉक होगा जो कि अलग अलग तरीके से प्लेस्ड है हर अलग केस में। GA में हमारे पास ब्लॉक फ्रंट में है, हेडलाइट्स ऑन द लेफ्ट। सेकेंड केस में हमारे पास राइट पे है ब्लॉक, राइट बैक पे एंड विद हेडलाइट्स ऑन द लेफ्ट। थर्ड केस में वी हैव हेडलाइट्स ऑन द लेफ्ट अगेन, बट हमारा जो ब्लॉक है वो पीछे चला गया है। एंड देन फाइनली GD हैज हेडलाइट्स ऑन द लेफ्ट एंड दिस ब्लॉक ऑन द राइट फ्रंट। सबसे पहले हम स्टार्ट करेंगे GA पर्म से। सो दिस इज GA पर्म। हेडलाइट्स हमें लेफ्ट पे रखनी है, ब्लॉक हमारे सामने होगा, एंड द एल्गोरिथम फॉर दिस केस इज R2 U R prime U R prime U prime R U prime R2 D U prime R prime U R D prime। एक बार फिर से इस केस को स्लोली करते हैं। R2 U R prime U R prime U prime R U prime R2 D U prime R prime U R D prime। और फुल स्पीड पे ये केस ऐसा लगता है। सो सेकेंड G perm दैट इज GB perm, हमारे पास हेडलाइट्स फिर से लेफ्ट पे होंगी एंड हमारे पास जो ब्लॉक है वो हमारे राइट बैक पे चला जाता है। और इस केस के लिए एल्गोरिथम इज R prime U prime R U D prime R2 U R prime U R U prime R U prime R2 D। So headlights on left, bar on the right back, R prime U prime R U D prime R2 U R prime U R U prime R U prime R2 D। और फुल स्पीड पे एल्गोरिथम ऐसी लगती है। थर्ड G perm जो कि GC perm होता है, अगेन हमारे पास हेडलाइट्स लेफ्ट पे रहेंगी बट जो ब्लॉक है हमारा पीछे चला जाता है। सो दिस इज हाउ यू रिकॉग्नाइज बिटवीन डिफरेंट केसेस। जस्ट लुक एट द कॉर्नर्स दैट इज हेडलाइट्स एंड जो ब्लॉक है उनकी पोजीशन चेंज होती रहेगी। सो दिस वन इज GC एंड द एल्गोरिथम फॉर दिस केस इज R2 U prime R U prime R U R prime U R2 D prime U R U prime R prime D। I'll repeat the algorithm again slowly. So headlights on the left, block on the back, and we do R2 U prime R U prime R U R prime U R2 D prime U R U prime R prime D। And full speed में ये algorithm ऐसी लगती है। Coming to the final G perm which is GD, इसके लिए हमारे पास हेडलाइट्स फिर से लेफ्ट पे रहेंगी बट ब्लॉक फ्रंट राइट पे आ जाता है। सो हमने ब्लॉक यहाँ पे देखा था, यहाँ पर अब फाइनली ब्लॉक यहाँ पे आ गया। दिस इज द GD perm एंड द एल्गोरिथम फॉर दिस केस इज R U R prime U prime D R2 U prime R U prime R prime U R prime U R2 D prime। Let's repeat the algorithm once more. R U R prime U prime D R2 U prime R U prime R prime U R prime U R2 D prime। At full speed, this is how the algorithm looks. Coming to the next set of cases, that is J perm, we have two kinds of J perms, JA and JB। J perms काफ़ी easy माने जाते हैं बिकॉज इनको याद करना आसान है और ये एग्जीक्यूट भी बहुत जल्दी होते हैं। सो फर्स्ट विल लुक एट JA perm और मैं फिर डिफरेंस बताऊंगा JA और JB में। सो JA perm में वी हैव अ सॉल्ट साइड एंड इन द फ्रंट वी हैव दिस ब्लॉक विच इज मैचिंग विद द फ्रंट कलर। बट ऑन JB we have a salt side but the block is not matching here, we have a different color block over here। so ये difference बहुत easy है इस केस में। सबसे पहले हम JA perm पे फोकस करेंगे। so JA perm we have a salt side, front पे हमारा block solved है and the algorithm for this case is Y R prime U L prime U2 R U prime R prime U2 R L and then U prime। I'll repeat the algorithm again. Y R prime U L prime U2 R U prime R prime U2 R L and then U prime। So at full speed this algorithm looks like this। Coming to the next case, that is JB perm, one of my favorite PLLs। इसमें हमारे पास फिर से salt side है but in the front we don't have a salt block unlike the last case। The salt block is actually in the back and ये exact opposite है first case का। And the algorithm for this case is R U R prime F prime R U R prime U prime R prime F R2 U prime R prime and U prime। Going over the algorithm once more and I'll give you a very small tip to memorize this। So the first 4 moves of this algorithm are R U R prime F prime, which is a very common trigger used in speed cubing, And the next set of triggers I have in this case is R, U, R prime, U prime, which is just called the sexy move. And finally, we can finish the algorithm with R prime, F, R2, U prime, R prime, and then U prime. Easy. So at full speed, this algorithm looks like this. The next set of cases for PLL, we have R perm. इसमें भी दो तरीके के R perm होते हैं, RA और RB. RA में again we have a pair of headlights which I've already matched with the colors, and in the front we have this block which is solved. So we have a pair of headlights and this is solved, and the rest of the cube is not complete. Secondly, RB, we have a very similar thing going on, but if I keep the headlights on the left hand side, we have no matching block in the front. It's actually in the back. Just like the J perm, we have just opposites here. So first of all, we'll focus on the RA perm. हमें headlights left पे hold करनी है once more, and then we'll perform the algorithm R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R, D, R prime, U prime, R, D prime, R prime, U2, R prime, and then U prime. So going over the algorithm once more, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R, D, R prime, U prime, R, D prime, R prime, U2, R prime, and then U prime. So quickly executed, this algorithm looks like this. The next case, that is RB, is very similar to the first one. We have a pair of matching headlights, but the block is in the back. So in this case, we hold the headlights in front of us, and the algorithm we do here is R prime, U2, R, U2, R prime, F, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F prime, R2, and then U prime. Going over the algorithm once more, R prime, U2, R, U2, R prime, F, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F prime, R2, U prime. So quickly executed, this algorithm looks like this. The next case I have is T perm. T perm is actually one of the most favorite PLLs for most of the cubers out there because the algorithm बहुत जल्दी execute हो जाती है. And in this case, the recognition is very easy as well. We have a pair of headlights and then we have two solved blocks opposites from each other. You have to hold the headlights on the left hand side again, and the algorithm for this case is R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R2, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime. Going over the algorithm once again, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R2, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime. One tip that I can give you to memorize this algorithm easily, the first four moves are a trigger which is called a sexy move. So we do R, U, R prime, U prime. Next we have again a four mover which is R prime, F, R2, U prime. This is also a very common trigger. And finally, to finish off the algorithm, what you need to do here is R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime. And quickly executed, the T perm looks like this. The next case I have is E perm, which is one of the most tedious cases for a lot of people. इस case में recognition सबसे important part है. So first, if you get the E perm, you can align the cube correctly with their respective centers like this. Second cheese we have to note here is we have green here and green here, blue here and blue here. And if I change the angle of the cube, we have orange here and orange here, red here and red here. So you have two opposite corners that are matching. और इस algorithm को execute करने के लिए we have to find the correct position. And correct position वही होगी जिसमें corners दोनों matching होंगे. And on the right side we have the same color as of the corner. So in this case, if I hold the cube like this, we have orange here, but there is no orange on this side. So this is the wrong angle. If I hold the cube like this, I have green here, and I also have green here. So this is the correct angle. And if I hold the cube from this, blue and blue is also here, this is again another correct position. So we can hold the cube in either of these two sides, and we have to perform the algorithm X prime, R U prime R prime D, R U R prime D prime, R U R prime D, R U prime R prime D prime, and then X. Once again going over the algorithm, X prime, R U prime R prime D, R U R prime D prime, R U R prime D, R U prime R prime D prime, and then X. Quickly executed, this algorithm looks like this. The next set of cases I have is NPerm. We have two kinds of NPerms again, NA and NB. NPerms थोड़े difficult होते हैं to memorize. The only thing you can do is just try to mug up the algorithm. But for recognition, it's very easy. In NA perm, we'll have solved blocks here, 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 and here on the right side. And the opposite of that, we'll have NB perm with blocks on the left hand side. So the case is very easy to recognize, but iski execution thodi practice se hi aati hai. We'll first focus on the NA perm. We'll have to hold one of the blocks that are matching with the centers, and we can execute the algorithm like this. R, U, R prime, U, R, U, R prime, F prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R2, U prime, R prime, U2, R, U prime, R prime. Going over this algorithm एक और बारी. R, U, R prime, U, R, U, R prime, F prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R2, U prime, R prime, U2, R, U prime, R prime. Quickly executing this for the last time. The next NPerm is NB. इसमें बस हमारे पास ब्लॉक दूसरी साइड पे होता है. And to execute this algorithm, we have to do Z, D prime, R, U prime, R2, D, R prime, U, D prime, R, U prime, R2, D, R prime, U. Once again, executing this algorithm, Z, D prime, R, U prime, R2, D, R prime, U, D prime, R, U prime, R2, D, R prime, U, and then Z prime. Executing this algorithm quickly. Coming to the next case, we have Y perm. The recognition for this case is very simple. हमारे पास दो blocks हैं ऐसे adjacently solved. बीच में एक corner है which is unsolved. So we are swapping these two pieces and these two pieces, and it kind of makes a Y shape. To solve this case, you have to hold this block on the left and this one on the right with the corner on your front right. And the algorithm for this case is F, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R, F prime. Going over the algorithm once more, and in this one I'll teach you a way to kind of memorize this more easily. The first few moves of this algorithm are F, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime. Till here the algorithm is a little different, but from here there are two triggers you can just memorize. We do sexy move, which is R, U, R prime, U prime, and then we have sledgehammer, which is just R prime, F, R, F prime, and that solves the Y perm. Quickly executing this one. The next PLL case we have is V perm. V perm सबसे difficult PLL लगता है almost सबको, including me. But the recognition of this one is very easy. What you get in this case is just this kind of cornered block. We have these two matching and these two matching, and these four pieces kind of become block. To solve this case, you have to hold this block on your left hand side, and the algorithm for this case is R prime, U, R prime, U prime, Y, R prime, F prime, R2, U prime, R prime, U, R prime, F, R, F. Slowly going over the algorithm once again, holding the block on the left. R prime, U, R prime, U prime, Y, R prime, F prime, R2, U prime, R prime, U, R prime, F, R, F. So again, executing this algorithm at full speed, it looks like this. Coming to the next set of cases, we have U perm. U perms are considered one of the best PLLs by every speed cuber pretty much. Again, हमारे पास दो तरीके के U perm है, UA and UB. I'll show you the difference between the two. So in both the PLLs हमारे पास एक solved side होगी, like this, and you will have all the corners solved as well. इस केस में बस डिफरेंस इतना है, UA में हमारे पास जो एजेस बचे हैं वो काउंटर क्लॉकवाइज डायरेक्शन में हमें भेजने हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, वी हैव येलो एंड ऑरेंज, दिस एज नीड्स टू गो हियर. वी हैव येलो रेड, दिस एज नीड्स टू गो ओवर हियर, एंड दिस येलो एंड ग्रीन कम्स हियर. सो हमारा काउंटर क्लॉकवाइज फैशन में चलता है. UB इज जस्ट एग्जैक्ट ऑपोजिट ऑफ UA. हमें एजेस क्लॉकवाइज साइकिल करने हैं. सो दिस येलो एंड ग्रीन कम्स हियर, दिस येलो एंड रेड गोज देयर, and this yellow orange comes here. So this is counterclockwise and this is clockwise. To execute this case, हमें solved side पीछे रखनी है, and the algorithm is R U prime, R U, R U, R U prime, R prime, U prime, R2. Going over the algorithm once again, R U prime, R U, R U, R U prime, R prime, U prime, R2. And quickly executed, this algorithm looks like this. Coming to the next U perm, which is UB, I already showed you the difference between the UA and UB perm. The algorithm for this case is R2, U, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R prime. Going over the algorithm once again, R2, U, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R prime. And quickly executed, this algorithm looks like this. Coming to the next set of cases, we have H perm and Z perm. H perm में we have a very similar thing going on as to the U perm. U perms में we have corners solved, and in H perm also we will have all the corners solved. Similar case is going on for the Z perm. We have all the corners solved. The difference between the two cases is इसमें हमें edges opposite swap करने हैं in H perm, like this and like this. But in Z perm we have to swap the edges just adjacently. So this goes here, this comes here, and this goes here, this comes here. So we make this Z shape over here. This is how the cases look. Firstly, we'll focus on the H perm. With yellow on top, you can hold the cube from any side and execute the algorithm. M2, U prime, M2, U2, M2, U prime, M2. For those of you who do not know what is M just stands for the middle layer, and one M move is just like this. M prime is just the opposite direction like this. And if I say M2, just turn the middle layer twice. Going over the H perm once more, M2, U prime, M2, U2, M2, U prime, M2. Quickly executed, this algorithm looks like this. Coming to Z perm, we have this Z shape going on, so we need to swap these two edges and these two edges. अब इसको कैसे पकड़ना है, I'll show you how. We have to send this edge over here. So we'll keep this edge in front of us, not this one. The edge needs to go on the right side, so we'll hold the cube like this. And the algorithm for this case is M prime, U prime, M2, U prime, M2, U prime, M prime, U2, M2, U. Once again, the algorithm is M prime, U prime, M2, U prime, M2, U prime, M prime, U2, M2, U. Quickly executed, the Z perm looks like this. So I hope आपको इस वीडियो से PLLs अच्छे से सीखने को मिल गए होंगे. अगर आपको कोई और PLL algorithm आता है, you can share it in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and also press that bell icon to not miss more videos. See you in the next one.